Then Jesus, filled with the power of the Spirit, returned to Galilee, and a report about him spread through all the surrounding country. He began to teach in their synagogues and was praised by everyone. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was the custom. He stood to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery to the sight of the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all the synagogue were fixed upon him. Then he began to say to them, "Today, this scripture has fulfilled the meaning of in your hearing."
Those of you who love the writer Frederick Buechner can imagine something of the week I had trying to pick the one passage that would just bring to you his amazing sense of sacredness. I chose in the end prayer. Thou God in Christ, there is no ground anywhere that is not holy ground, for in the cool of the evening thou hast walked upon it, and in the heat of the day thou hast died upon it. And at the coming of dawn thou hast returned, and art always and everywhere returning to it, and to us who walk upon it too, this holy ground, though heedless of its holiness. O make us whole, set us free. Thou didst shape us each in the darkness of a womb to give us life, and thou knowest us each by name, and not one is forgotten by thee, not one, but is precious in thy sight. The ugly with the beautiful, the criminal with the child, the enemy with the friend. Lord, give us eyes to see each other and ourselves more nearly as thou seest us, to see beneath each face we meet, and beneath even our own faces, thy face. Help us to know that for each thou hast died, as though he were the only one. Amen.
Almost a Conversation by Mary Oliver. I have not really, not yet, talked with the otter about his life. He has so many teeth, he has trouble with vowels. Wherefore, our understanding is all body expression. He swims like the sleekest fish. He dives and exhales and lifts a trail of bubbles. Little by little, he trusts my eyes and my curious body sitting by the shore. Sometimes he comes close. I admire his whiskers and his dark fur, which I would rather die than wear. He has no words, still he tells me about his life, and it's clear. He does not own a computer. He imagines the river will last forever. He does not envy the dry house that I live in. He does not wonder who or what it is that I worship. He wonders morning after morning that the river is so cold and fresh and alive, and still I don't jump in.
The children have made us a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. To add to our set of dolls here at the front. I think it's quite splendid. So that will happen. Last week, it was very powerful to hear Martin Luther King's voice in our service. You may know that the poet Mary Oliver died 10 days ago. And we had from Seattle Arts and Lectures an email with a recording of her reading one of her most familiar poems. So let's listen to that.
You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things.
I grew up in a church that used these and thous when we prayed. Maybe some of you did too. The man who was our pastor was in his post there in the church from the time I arrived, age 5, through the time I was ordained, age 28, and for a number of years beyond that, which means that I would not have been around. Which means that he was kind of the spiritual influence through all of my Christian formation. And he was expert in that language of these and thous. They just tripped off his tongue, just effortlessly, so that in time the words embedded themselves in all of our souls. God of love, we worship thee. Thou hast blessed us. We listen for thy voice. There's a grammar to it. And I could easily talk you through the whole thing. I am, you are, he, she, it is, thou art. To me, to you, to him, to her, to thee. My house, your house, his, her house, thy house, right? It felt cool to be fluent in a language that we only ever used in church. Kind of like a precious secret. If you grew up using the King James Bible, you'll be even more deeply rooted in that language. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. The language, combined with the music and the simple perfection of the altar flowers and the candles and the leaded windows and the red cushions on the pews, all combined to foster a sense of sacredness in my young consciousness. And that sense of the holy was part of my repertoire of being human, like adding a new genre of music to your portfolio. And since then, I've watched with joy, seeing the same thing unfold in other children. One of the churches I served had a fair number of kids, and you could tell right away who were the ones who were our kids, who came week in and week out, and who were the ones who were only there that particular Sunday because maybe their cousin was being baptized or whatever. Our children knew how to be reverent. From really little, they would help with the offering. I remember watching somebody tiny solemnly walking up the aisle holding the plate. It was a dignity so profound that partly you wanted to just break out and laugh, but at the same time the shivers were running up our spines. Reverence is caught, not taught. And the children who aren't here are missing out on something that could be a gift their whole lives long. What I understood as a little kid was that these endow's were a holy, special language. They created a world of awe. Their job was to take us into the awesome presence of God. We should always be addressed with our full attention and our whole love and our greatest respect. It was the opposite of the way we might banter in other places. It was language that wore a suit to church or a hat and gloves and Sunday shoes. It was language putting us on our best behavior. And if you can relate to that, then maybe you also know where I'm going. Come fourth grade, we started learning Spanish in school. Yo estoy, tú estás, ustedes están, nosotros estamos, ustedes están. How bizarre, Spanish-speaking people have two words for you. How confusing, how potentially dangerous, huh? Tongue-tied sort of minefield stepping into, to have to figure out whether the person you're talking to was a buddy you could address as tú, or a superior who needed usted. Exactly how much older did somebody have to be to warrant usted instead of tú? Dangerous, right? And other languages, I believe, have the same thing. I guess native speakers must just grow up with an instinct for it, and when the occasion demands formality, and when it's okay to be casual. Then came high school, and my first encounter with Shakespeare. In high school, I learned the shocking truth that English also used to have that distinction between formal and casual, respect and intimacy, and that these and thous and thys were not the language of respect, they were the language of buddyhood. You go home and open up any of the Shakespeare plays and have a look. The king can address anybody as thee, but even the king's wife addresses him as you, the deference of you. Are you following me? This is shocking. I am registering shock on a few faces. This is shocking. Suddenly, all the majesty of the King James Bible is turned on its head. We thought we had God on a lofty throne, when all this time we were speaking more like Jesus, Abba, Father, Daddy. When I learned that, it gutted me with loss, even as it opened new worlds of possibility. About the same time, the Good News Bible came out, and lots of people were spitting mad, vitriolic, because it was common. All the dignity was gone. The Bible was being dragged through the dirt. I was old enough to make the connection. The things we had used to create that beautiful bubble of sacredness around the Bible had been false anyway. And it wasn't at all clear who we'd be, what the church would be, when all this sacredness was dismantled. I've got 3 points to draw from all of this. The first is about us. Reverence is a choice, and we should be intentional about choosing it, learning what it feels like to worship, cultivating that place within ourselves, that attitude. One of the marvelous things about being human is how many different moods we get to experience, a great palette of different colors of being human. But within the glorious, crazy mix of everything we are, there is that hunger for the sacred, that instinct for the holy, the fulfillment of wholehearted yielding before an otherness that is greater than we are, above, beyond us, beyond our control. That's the best thing about it. I really believe that we cannot be whole without the awe that comes with a sense of that greater whole, that greater scale of things. Appealing to that instinct is a lot of what Jeff and I do when we sit down to plan worship for a Sunday. What the elements will be, how they'll fit together, so that as a congregation we move into a sense of the presence and the awesomeness, the otherness of God. If we don't manage that, we've cheated you. But you've got a responsibility for it too. On the day that you stand up to become a member here, you pledge to be faithful in private prayer as well as public worship. If you only put on reverence for an hour every Sunday or maybe just a couple times a month, then you're cheating yourself of part of your birthright as a human being. It matters. That's my first point. Reverence, a deep and respectful sense of the sacred, is a beautiful gift of our humanity. We owe it to ourselves to discover the practices that best nurture it in us. My second point follows with wonderful help from Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver wasn't much of one for organized religion, but through her eyes and her spirit, we encounter wonder everywhere. It wasn't church that inspired that reverence in her, but trees, birds, dogs, thunderstorms, grasshoppers. What a gift she shared with us. She would go out for a walk and be bowled over by the amazingness of it, the awesomeness of everything, and then she'd come home and capture it just so in words so that we could feel it too. I love that poem that Pat read about the otter. We see him with his mouth full of teeth and his whiskers and his dark, sleek fur. And then the poet knocks us over. He couldn't care less what belief we subscribe to, but he can't fathom how when the river is so cold and fresh and alive, we don't all just jump in. Religion lets people down. Fact, huh? But that does not spell the end of reverence. Reverence is alive and well. Holiness is anywhere you care to look, if you really look. The invitation is around us all the time to look with our senses wide open and love the world we inhabit. Love it fiercely. Love who we are in it. Mary Oliver spent hours, literally hours, every day observing things. She wasn't ever watching from a safe distance. She gave her soul to that plunging in, and she calls us, come join me. She holds up a mirror to our pitiful caution and self-protection. There is so much more, she says. And we know she's right. Do you see how this is the flip side of the loss I described? If the bubble of sacredness that we construct out of our words, our images, our architecture is somehow popped, those things were only ever tools. They were only ever kind of human-made fast tracks, aids, to a place we can return to any time we want. Reverence isn't about getting the surroundings right. It's about getting you right. It's about opening your soul. One more point and I'm done. If you could take a time machine back to the 1st century, to the inaugural address of the Son of God, hear him sum up in a few words what the 3 years of his earthly ministry are going to be about, what would you expect him to say? I'm going to teach people to pray. I'll take them up on a mountaintop and we'll all meditate until we've achieved enlightenment. I'm going to open spiritual heights and depths for them. I'm going to show them how to find God. I'm going to create a holy people. Something like that, maybe? Jesus unrolls the scroll, and every eye in the synagogue is on him. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, he says, because God has anointed me. You say, yeah? To bring good news to the poor. Excuse me? He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. Jesus leads us out of whatever bubble we've created, onto the streets, the dollar store, that caravan on its way north, the soup kitchen, the city hospital, the detention center by the airport. Wherever people are poor, locked up, blind, and powerless, that's where his mission lies. Like the prophet before him, he knows that a God who only lives in church is no God at all. God is less about where a beautiful celebrity might go in this world than where the social worker goes or the parole officer. Jesus took Mary Oliver type eyes out into the whole world. And he calls us to learn reverence not only in the forest or by the ocean like she did, but absolutely everywhere. Maybe you become a Christian the day that you can see God in a man hanging on a cross. It's like finding out that the bees and boughs that carried you to heaven are actually the language of everydayness. Sacredness isn't a bubble. It is God in everything, everywhere, for those who have eyes to see. And when we do see, when we realize that every place we ever walk is holy ground, we learn the true possibility of reverence, which our souls somehow already know. And we become that 4-year-old again, entrusted with carrying the offering plate of our lives to the altar of awesome holiness, one worshipful step at a time.
Think of all the hearts beating in the world at the same time. Think of all the faces and the stories they could tell at the same time. Think of all the eyes looking out into the world, trying to make some sense of what they see. Think of all the ways we have of seeing. Think of all the ways there are of being. Think of all the children being born into this world at the same time. Feel your love around them through the years that lead to grow at the same time. Think of all the hands that will be real.